welcome to our coaching conversations. My name is Daryl Lee Barbera, and I'm a principal here at DPC at Diversified Professional Coaching. And we are in for a true treat today. We are joined by George Fernandez, and George is one of our coaches here at DPC. He is a certified professional business coach, a CFP, and he holds an MBA. And I have known George for many years, and I have personally witnessed how instrumental he has been in helping so many professionals take their practices, take their businesses to that next level. Now, George and I spent a lot of time in the financial planning arena, wealth management, insurance, comprehensive financial planning. And George has expanded his practice to be business coaching. So George, first of all, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. And then I think you're going to kind of help me with your introduction, because there's so many things I can say about you. But moving into business coaching, what inspired you to make that shift, and how has your experience shaped the way that you coach today?
Wow, and thanks so much. It's great to be here as well, Darely. Good to see you. And as you said, we've known each other for a very long time, and so it's pretty awesome to be here and kind of see how we both grown in the last many years. So the transition took place. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was like 5 years ago when I made this shift into business coaching. And what I saw at the time was I had already been working with financial advisors during that period and helping them with their businesses. And I wanted to look for ways to take it to that next level. And working with the PDCA and the process of becoming a business coach, what changed in that was the language, the interaction. And so we went through a certification process, as you remember, back 5 years ago. And I learned kind of that nuance of how do I change the conversation to help a person grow. I also learned something else really important too, and that is the work that I had been doing up to that point had been really kind of a bit more like consulting. It's like solving things. And what I learned through that initial step into the business coaching world was, you know what? They know their business really pretty well, but what they don't know is themselves very well. And what business coaching helped me do was really help level up the business owner to meet them where they thought they were. I think it's probably the best way to describe it. And so it's been a really awesome journey coming into this world. I still predominantly work with financial advisors or those within the financial services industry. My love for financial planning has never gone away. I have a fundamental belief that if you read my bio over on LinkedIn, you would see that I have a fundamental belief that there's a plan for every future. And so I have longed for ways to keep pushing that I guess mission forward, if you will.
Well, and importantly, you mentioned your bio, and we have in the beginning of this and at the end a link to your profile that's on the DPC website, because there's so much there about you that really informs our audience about where your strengths are, your areas of expertise. So definitely we want folks to take a peek at that. In your coaching work and working with leaders, um, what are some of the blind spots that you see leaders face? And I think that kind of just blends into what you just described for us about, knowing yourself. And then how can you help them to move forward from those once you identify those blind spots?
Yeah, that's a great question because we often we often know we have them. I think that's the first thing. Is most people know they probably have their blind spots, but they're blind spots, so you can't see them. And so the first blind spot I always kind of jokingly say is that, you can't get objectivity by looking in a mirror. That just doesn't happen, right? We can, no matter how many times we look ourselves, how long we look in the mirror, we can't naturally see that have that objectivity. And so I really like to have this understanding of I want to help people understand what it's like to sit in the seat across from me or across from you. So for example, if I'm looking at myself, I'd be asking George the question, George, do you know what it's like to sit in a chair across from you? How, the way in which you communicate, perhaps the way in which you interact and or when you get defensive, what causes that defensive, behavior. Those are blind spots, those natural tendencies that we have that we don't realize the impact it has on the person sitting across from us. And so that to me is probably the biggest blind spot is self-awareness. If you really want to put a bottom line title on it, It's self-awareness. And I work a lot with the folks and with my coaching clients on building self-awareness. And what they discover is that, wow, I didn't realize I had that tendency. And when they know that, it just empowers them even more to be able to not go down that path that they thought they were, that they were going down, if you will.
Well, and you had referenced, getting to know yourself. And I think that was one of my real eye openers in getting certified as a business coach is that truly, in contrast to consulting, this is about working with our clients from where they are and
Hmm.
for them to um, build skills and springboard from their foundation. And so the more they can know themselves, that's just better for certainly professional endeavors, but personal endeavors, right? Just knowing
Yeah,
yourself
absolutely.
so well. And I will remember you're saying now about you, the objectivity by looking in a mirror. So
Right. Right.
that kind of says it all.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just kind of
yeah,
picking up on something you
go
just said
ahead.
there, which made me think, um, it's not just when we start working with folks about understanding themselves better, they realize it's not just in their business where that impacts them. It ends in their personal life. I have had clients come to me and say, I've noticed a difference in the way in which I'm responding to my friends, to my family, to my spouse, just by gaining self-awareness for the work that I do in my business. I didn't realize how much there was that overflow was going on, and how I might be different to different people, and how this helps me become my more authentic self. And so it's amazing to see that transformation, not just in the business, but also in their personal life. So thanks for bringing that up.
Well, yeah, and that makes me just want to ask you about if you have an example that you'd want to share with us where you have seen someone truly be transformed, and what is it that made the difference?
Yeah, so the self-awareness is the biggest difference, of course, that we've seen. Of course, I have to be careful, not to portray, betray client confidence,
Of course.
and privacy. But I would put it this way: the things that I hear my clients say after working with them is, things like, George, you made me pause. I never realized how important that was. Or you gave me perspective of what it's like to sit across from me, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that I didn't realize. I didn't realize that when that I'm not as patient as I thought I was. And here's how it comes out when I'm stressed. I hear about how I'm taking more time for my family that I wasn't doing before because you made me recognize where my strength and my recharge is. We talk a lot about this idea of first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and so forth, and we talk about the importance of recharging, and I realized I wasn't recharging. And so those are kind of the comments that I hear. But most importantly, in all of that, what I have found is that when you discover this self-awareness, and you begin living it, it sticks around. These are things that I like to say it this way. Once you become aware, you can't become unaware anymore. You're making a choice then, right? So that's the work that we're doing. And when that happens, the transformation last. It doesn't, it's real change that lasts. And I think that's what transformation is. It isn't about a quick fix. There's no quick solution. If you want real transformation, it takes hard work and effort. But when that happens, it sticks. That's probably the biggest takeaway from that.
Well, and something that you just said too makes me remember that, it's about giving our clients that permission to stop, take a beat, pause, and actually focus on yourself. Most leaders, I think, are so busy worrying about everyone else and feeling like if they were to stop, focus on themselves, that would deprive other people. And indeed, everyone is counting on the leader to be the best version of themselves. And the only
Yes.
way we can do that is actually to just have this little picture of a stop sign in our mind's eye going, just stop,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And that's okay to
It
pause.
is.
Yeah.
You're right. I think, it is important. Clearly, the person sitting across from us, we need to care about that person, and we need to elevate them and liberate them in the best way we possibly can so they can become the best versions of themselves first. But if we are not working toward that ourselves, then it's hard for us to be authentic. And when we find ourselves being authentic, by the way, the person sitting across from us sees that too. And so there's this reciprocity of liberation that takes place, which is really kind of cool. I
Mhm.
actually remember a leader telling me once that when I began learning more about myself and the person sitting over here, I didn't realize how much learning about them actually helped me understand myself better too. And so it elevated both people. And so that's what we're really trying to do is amplify and create more leaders that are more aware of themselves.
Well, and I think it's wonderful leadership skills to be modeling for the team,
Hmm.
is that to take that time. I think what you're saying just makes me feel like that is the way that we're of best service to the team and of best service to the clients that we serve and to your families and so forth, is really starting first with the person that's in the mirror.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Trickles down to all those
yeah,
relationships. Yeah, you're exactly right.
yeah, so important. So, and this is probably a good time to ask you about are what are some of your favorite tools to use
Yeah.
for that type of important assessments?
Yeah, so there are a lot of really great tools out there, and I would argue that any one of them being used in the right way could benefit. So in the past, I've used DISC, I've used Colby, Myers-Briggs, to name a few. But I would say my go-to that I've been using for the last couple of years, last 3 years, has been the Five Voices that was developed by Giant Worldwide. And the reason for that is because I have found that it has created an opportunity for me to create the greatest level of self-awareness. And not only that, it also enables me to help them create a common language amongst their team. So if I use this in a team environment, they also kind of grab a hold of all the language that's being used in this assessment and the training that goes with it, and they can start using that amongst themselves. I've seen this happen time and time again where it's just organic, and they come together in ways that is it's really kind of exciting. And 2 years into it, they're still having the same conversations about this person's a pioneer, this person's a nurturer, whatever, and they're still talking the language. And Five Voices was the first tool that I've used where I saw that consistent, lasting, what we were talking about before, transformation as it relates to the team and engagement. One of the things I didn't share this earlier, but I would say that one of the biggest blind spots for leaders is that we always kind of think it's execution, and I've been there. I know that if we could just do things better, maybe we could actually get more things done. But if we're not communicating effectively, which is what I do in the work on the Five Voices, if we're not communicating effectively, then it doesn't matter how good the systems are. We're not going to be able to work around those things. And so communication is so important in order to have great relationships and to be in alignment. And that flows into execution. And most people focus only on execution, thinking that's going to solve it, but that doesn't always work. It might for a short period, but long-term lasting, no, you need to make sure that you've got the rest of the flywheel working.
Yes, and communication, that's another good place for leaders to be able to, permission granted, to just pause and to actually take some time to go study communication. We have so many good resources, and indeed in coaching, something like the Five Voices would certainly be able to, cool tool to use to really put a focus on that
Yeah.
communication, not just for yourself, singular communication, but the team communication. That sounds like a great tool, George.
It it's been a great tool. I would say too, there's another little book here that's also a great tool, and that's The Coaching Habit. And so it's another. I used it, when I first began, kind of started my path and down more of a coaching versus a consulting, and it really helped me pause to ask and to know how to ask questions more effectively. And it's a great tiny little book, but it's powerful. And so Coaching Habits is one that I often refer to clients when they're wanting to learn how to be more curious and more inquisitive with their engagements, especially if they're working with service related businesses.
Okay, and
Another
you
great
said
tool.
it's a small book,
It's a small book. Yeah,
right? Well,
it, but it's
sounds
packed.
good.
It's like packed. So,
Okay.
you might look at it and go, "Oh, I can finish this in a weekend." Yeah, probably not if you do all the exercises.
Oh, okay.
You want
All
to you want
right.
to dig in, but it is a small book.
It sounded
But
like
it's a
an
powerful
easy
book.
yes. So,
Yeah, powerful book.
so well, that is really good. And I'm glad you mentioned communication. DISC is a helpful tool for us too. I think that's a good starter too. And to just really the awareness, I think you had mentioned too, like communication when we're relaxed and so forth. But what about when you're stressed? Then communication
Yeah.
becomes different, doesn't it?
It
So,
really does. Yeah, we have, I have tendencies when I'm stressed and puts kind of if I'm in a corner. Um, that was one of the things that, when I worked with Five Voices, it brought out it helped me understand how I react. And I've shared with others when I've done this with, had this conversation before. It's like it answered a 30-year question of, oh, I never realized that that was actually the way I was responding. I thought I was being helpful. And that there I now understand. Sometimes, Darely, I feel like I need to go back and apologize. So that's the kind of level of self-awareness it kind of brings about. So, but communication is important. So again, like you said, DISC assessment, Colby, Myers-Briggs, Five Voices, there's and Gallup, they all have great tools to help us with that. And so the important thing is that if you're working with someone, that they're certified in that, they truly understand the
mhm.
nuances of it and how it works. Just taking the assessment or reading the report is only one step in the process of anything that you use a tool like that. So to get the best out of you, need someone who truly understands it. So that's the important thing there.
Yeah, and I will just mention, because we could talk about communication all day long, that
Yeah.
so many people approach communication as that they're going to communicate outbound to people in the way that they'd like to be communicated to. Well, that is not
Yeah.
necessarily the best way to go, right? It's like
Yeah,
these tools help us to understand how do other people want to be communicated with, and
exactly.
then for us to become more knowledgeable to spot that and then to modify and adjust
Yeah,
our communication so that they'll be able to receive the message, right?
exactly.
And understand.
Exactly. When you're communicating, it's not one way, right? You're sending and receiving.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so are you sending with intent and listening with intent? And
Exactly.
right? So yeah, exactly. It's a great point.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing those tools up. So we could just visit all day long, George.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to leave you with just one last very important question, and that is to leave us with some good advice. So for the listeners who are here, what if someone, a leader, is feeling overwhelmed by all the competing demands that we have? Is there one mindset shift or some practical step that they can take like immediately where they could get more clarity and build some momentum?
The most important thing that I think somebody could do is, and as a leader, it's not uncommon to have all that pressure, right? To have all the answers. So it's really kind of twofold. It's really take a pause. The leaders that I've worked with, one of the most important things, feedback that I hear is that you taught me how to just pause before I react. So we do need to react as leaders. So not dismissing that importance, but we don't want to react out of emotion. We want to react, okay, we got to take a pause. Once we do that, also realize that just because you're a leader, you don't have to know all the answers. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be the one who has to have all the answers. That's why we create teams. That's why we have people that we have that work with us, that work alongside of us, whether they're, above us in hierarchy or whether they're, a direct report. We can rely on the people around us. And that was one of the most important things I learned along my journey in leadership at all was that I don't need to have all the answers because the people around me have the answers. What I need to be able to do as a leader is communicate effectively with all of those people, the way that we just been talking about. And when I can do that, then they can help me with gathering those answers. So that's my belief in that. I don't know if everybody believes in necessarily agreement, but I can tell you that in my experience, successful leaders that I've worked for, leaders that I want to emulate, they're all like that. You know a few that we've worked with, in our past that were phenomenal at that, and they would be the first to say, "I don't have the answer to that, but let's go find that out together." So pause. You don't have to have all the answers.
Well, and to understand the question
Well,
too.
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
big.
Yeah. That clearly kind of goes. I probably could
Yeah.
have said that on the front end, sure, but
Yeah.
exactly. But you're right. You're exactly right. You got to know the question too. What's being
Yeah.
asked?
Yes, and then not to be afraid to ask more questions about that question,
Exactly.
clarifying
Yeah,
questions, so we can be sure we understand what the question is. Because sometimes I
exactly.
think there's more power in knowing what the question is, sometimes even more so than the
Yeah.
answer. But totally, yes, the
Yeah.
team.
Great,
That's
great.
why we have teams.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And that's where Coaching Habit really helps out.
absolutely. So, well, George, is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with? This has been marvelous.
No, I don't think so. I think thanks so much for the time to be here. I'm glad to be able to, share the news and kind of the work that we do as coaches, and to look forward to hearing from other coaches here as well.
Well, very good. So with that, thank you, George, and thank you everyone for watching our coaching conversations. And feel free to reach out to us at DPC. You'll see George's contact information and the DPC website in the follow-up slide. So join us for another coaching conversation. Thanks, George, again.
You bet. See you soon.